All right, so welcome to today's tutorial for first-time Fusion users and never-ever users of 3D CAD. And this is a small table lamp. There's an old tradition inside of mechanical CAD software companies that the first tutorial is a small table lamp of questionable aesthetic quality. And I've decided to stick to that old tradition, and we will be building this small table lamp. It is not a real table lamp. It is the sort of table lamp that if you were working at a table lamp company, you might make a design, an idea, and you might take it to your boss and say, "Hey boss, should this be the sort of table lamp we want to make?" And he would say yes, or he would say no. And as a result, it is all one body. There are many missing parts, but you can see the design and the layout of this. And it's a good choice for people who perhaps never used Fusion, or even better, if you've never used a 3D mechanical CAD software ever. In the description of this video, you can find a background picture, which I'll show you here. It's a background image right here. And this background image you can download off of the internet, and you will be able to follow along and do this tutorial just as I do it as well. Just look in the description, you'll find that link there where you can download that, and you'll need to do that beforehand. So if you haven't done that yet, pause this video, download that file, and store it on your local hard drive so you'll be able to follow along well. All right, so we're going to begin with nothing in the canvas and nothing starting, so that you'll have an idea what it's like to come into your Fusion and make your ideas a reality. Before we even begin, let's just look at the Fusion interface quickly. And we won't describe everything that's here, but you'll notice that across the top we have some toolbars. And each of these toolbars, there's some shortcuts up here. These are commands that Autodesk, for one reason or another, has decided are so important and so commonly used that we put them as shortcuts. But you'll notice that here, all of these commands are also located in the pull-down menu, and there are significantly more also in the pull-down menu. So you can see those here. You'll see that press pull is here, and it is also as a shortcut. You'll also notice that press pull has a shortcut key, a hotkey of Q. And if you are so inclined, you can actually reach all these menus by pressing your right mouse button on a three button wheel mouse as well, and you'll find most of those commands there as well. For the sake of consistency today, I will be trying to always use the pull down menu because it is sort of the default, and today we're trying to have a nice straight shot, an easy tutorial beginner's version, and if you so choose, you can change the toolbars to your liking, you can set up your own hotkeys, and you can do all this stuff, but that's a tutorial for another day and for someone who's been using Fusion a bit longer. You'll notice some things over here on the left side. This is what we call the browser. You'll see things turn up here as we create them, and you'll also see down at the bottom what we call the timeline, and this shows the order of functions in which you have created. They will sort of stack up along the bottom. We'll talk about that as well. Here at the top right, you will see what we call the view cube. And this is a navigation tool where you can look at different sides. You can just click on each of these different arrows and it will spin the model to look at it from that direction. Currently you see nothing because there is nothing in our view screen, but that will change. If you lose yourself, you can always go to the home button, and this will give you an isometric view and fit the geometry on your screen. Also, while we're talking about fitting things on your screen, if you lose everything, go down here at the bottom and you'll see there is a command in this pull down called fit. And the first time you click on it, it will fit all the geometry that you have onto your screen. And it's a good way to find yourself if you've lost everything and don't see anything on your screen, don't know where you are. Just go and hit fit first and you'll generally find your bearings. Before we even begin, let's look at a few settings. And one of them down here is at grids and snaps. There is a whole video I've created on my preferred settings for Fusion, but we can skip that for now. And the most important thing is I want you to turn off the snap to grid, and I want you to turn off the incremental move. The incremental move will allow you to create geometries only in 1 millimeter or 10 millimeter or 100 millimeter increments, or 1 inch, 2 inch, however you have your Fusion set up. And I don't want to have that. And I also don't want to have snap to grid. As a matter of fact, I would prefer not having the grid at all, but if the grid is showing in your system, that is okay. Just turn off the snap to grid so that you don't just snap to those points on the grid, because you know what, we're going to be using measurements that may not be round numbers, and that's fine with me. All right, so to begin today, we are going to be using a background picture upon which we are going to draw the concept of our lamp. And this might be a hand sketch, it might be a photo, it may even be a number of sketches or photos. In the business, we sometimes call those mood boards, and they have all sorts of different things on them. And they can be inspiration, or in our case, they can actually be used as a template for our design. To do this, we're going to say Insert Canvas. And you'll notice that this canvas command is used so frequently is actually in the shortcut, but this is not the insert command. This is the insert menu, of which the canvas command is one. If we click on this, Fusion will bring you up a pop-up window, and it will say, hey there, boss. What picture would you like to use as your background canvas? And it will default to looking at the Fusion file store, which, as I said earlier, is in the cloud, not on your local machine. And you could go and use one of these. But since you don't have this and you haven't stored it on your cloud storage location yet, let's go and grab that from your computer. And you do that with this button down here. This will open up your local file storage system. And this is the point where you go and grab that photo that I gave you as a download in the description of this video. Wherever you stored it, navigate to that spot and go grab that photo. That is this one right here. As you can see, I've done this before. Now, Fusion does this time and time again, so let's spend some time with it right now. We now have that command active. We've chosen the file that we wanted to use as our background picture, and you can actually see a pop-up window that turns up here, as it often does in Fusion. And you can see the image we're using is shown here. If I don't like that image and I decided I didn't want to use it, I could always hit the X button right here, the delete key, and then I would be able to go and select a new one. But this is just fine. Right now, Fusion is telling me with this blue highlight on face that I need to select a face on which to place this photo. And since I don't have any geometry currently active inside the view screen, Fusion has gone and turned on automatically my 3 base planes. This is the XY plane, the XZ plane, and the YZ plane. And in this particular case, I have a picture that is sort of a side view of my lamp. So I'm going to use that side view, which is right here, and I'm going to click on this one right there. The moment I do this, my toolbar, my pop-up window, changes, becomes a little bit more complex. And you can see if you look closely here, there's actually the picture, but we don't actually have to zoom in there yet. We can just leave it as is. And there's only one thing I want you to change, well, 2 things I want you to change right now. I want you to change the canvas opacity, and I want you to make that something about 50% or perhaps slightly less. And I would like you to check the option of display through. What this is you have a picture right here, and if this picture was 100% opaque, if I were designing anything behind the picture, I wouldn't be able to see the design because the picture itself would be obscuring the design. So for this reason, I make my canvas a bit see-through, transparent, and this way I'm able to design behind the picture but still see what I'm designing. In the same way, if I have something in front of my picture and I do not have display through checked, I will not be able to see the picture anymore. And since the picture will be the basis of my design, and I may want to have my geometry match that picture, I use the magic of CAD to say display through. And this makes my object upon which I'm designing in front of my picture also somewhat transparent, so that I'm able to see the picture at all times. By the way, Fusion is persistent in this area, so once you've changed these, anytime you use this Fusion again and use this command in Fusion again, these will remain this way. This is why I didn't need to change them. This is why they are always this way for me, and I almost always leave them this way. All this other stuff is interesting later, but we can leave it for now. We can just say okay. Now, the moment you do this, you'll be able to see that there is a canvas in your space, and it looks very, very small. But let's do a little bit of navigation. First off, let's zoom in a little bit. And you should be using a 3-button wheeled mouse to use CAD. If you are on a touchpad, go get a 3-button mouse right now. Steal it. You got to have one. You can use Fusion without it, but I cannot recommend it. And no, if you are a Mac user, you are not faster on your touchpad than you are with a 3-button wheeled mouse. I promise you this. I've trained thousands of people how to use CAD systems for over 25 years, and you're gonna be much happier if you use a 3-button wheeled mouse. So go grab it. Once you have that, zooming in is just a matter of placing your cursor on the space where you would like to zoom into, and then zooming in with that middle mouse button. Experiment a bit, and you'll find that you can zoom in and out easily using that middle mouse button wheel and just zooming in and out. Keep in mind that zooming in and out always goes to your mouse. So if my mouse is over here, I'll zoom to the mouse. If my mouse is over here, I'll zoom to the mouse. And for this reason, the middle mouse zooming is in effect also a pan button, because I'll zoom out, move my mouse to the area that I'm interested in, and then zoom into that area. And then I'll zoom out, move my mouse button to the area that I'm interested in, and zoom into that area. And as a result, it's kind of an easy and cheap way to do zooming and panning at the same time. Now, if you lose yourself, don't forget about this fit button down here. Just go grab it and it'll take care of your worries. It'll give you some orientation. Also, I'd like to look at the picture normally, like directly in front of it. And for this, I'm going to use the view cube. We can just click on the right and you'll be able to pop right onto the normal view of that. This also works with all the other directions. That's no problem. And you can even twist like this. If you would like to rotate this file, oh, by the way, I should point out, you can actually go to the corners as well. They also work. You can click on that for an isometric view, a modified isometric view, or even this one if you'd so choose. Yeah. If you lose yourself, just go to the home button. You should be able to find yourself again, and then you can go to the right button. No problem. Keep in mind that if you would like to roll and twist and pan with this thing, you can just hold your left mouse button on the view cube, and as you're holding it, move your mouse around, and you'll be able to twist and roll that model as you like as well. This together with the pan button does work very well for me, and I do like it. I will break a lance at this point for a 3D space mouse. If you are able to afford one and want to work professionally with CAD or 3D visualization softwares, I will always recommend a space mouse, and I do use one extensively, but I will not use it today for the benefit of this tutorial. If you don't know what that is, just look it up. Just do space mouse on Google and you'll find out. They are not very expensive these days, and they will make you much, much faster with Fusion or with any CAD and a number of other programs as well. So once we're looking at this thing from the right side, and we've gone and maybe done a fit so that we're looking at it properly, we can see what we've got here. This is sort of the lamp that we're going to be designing with. And there is one problem here that we need to talk about right away. No one told us how big this lamp is. And as a result, it might be a teeny tiny thing, or it might be just gigantic. So for that reason, we need to make sure that this picture is actually calibrated to the right size. And there's a function for that in Fusion. In the moment where we put this canvas in, we got a folder here on the left side called Canvases. And you can open this up using this arrow right here. And you can even turn it on and off, its visibility on and off, by using the eyeball here, the eyeball here. You can either turn off one canvas or all the canvases. In this particular case, that is one and the same thing because we only have one canvas, but you can have as many as you like. And in this particular case, we'd like to click on this with the right mouse button, and there is a command called calibrate. And pay attention here. If you use the calibrate command, your mouse cursor will change. It will become sort of a crosshair. And if you leave your mouse still for just long enough, it'll tell you in a tooltip what it wants from you to pick the first point on the canvas plane. If I choose this point right up here, just sort of right at the tippy top, and click there, and then there is no assistance here. I have to kind of eyeball this really nicely, and I kind of have a fake floor. Remember, there is no floor in CAD in general. The system doesn't know about things like floors or air or anything else. It's just geometry floating in space. So I tried to eyeball that. I didn't quite get it right, but you can see the linear distance between both of these points is 6.4 something millimeters. This is tiny. And I want to make this lamp for my mother-in-law, and I want it to be 50 centimeters high. So I just type in 50 cm. If you're working in inches, you can still type in 50 cm, and Fusion will do the calculations for you, and it'll change it. Fusion generally works by default in millimeters. So if I put in 500, that'd be just fine. It'd just do 500 millimeters, but I can use any units I like. So let's do 50 cm. Now you're gonna say, where did it go? I hit my enter key and it's gone. It didn't go anywhere. It just scaled it up, and we happen to be looking at a white part of the picture right now. So go down to the fit button and hit that, and you can see that I have this. Now I'll prove it to you. You don't have to do this. I'll go and recalibrate this, and I'll measure sort of like a fake measurement from here to there. And you can see that is now 501 millimeters. I didn't get quite exactly the same, but this is, I'm just gonna press the escape key because I don't want to actually do this. I just wanted to prove to you that this thing is now 50 centimeters high. It's quite a big lamp, but you know, that's what I decided to do. If you don't like that, you can make it smaller. No skin off my knuckles for that. All right. So now we got the lamp at the right size, but we don't have it in the right place. If you turn on your origin, that is sort of an imaginary mathematical 0 point that's here in space, you'll notice that my coordinate system is sitting here in space. Now this is totally imaginary. It has nothing to do with the real world, but this can be useful for me because based on my origin, I have the X, Y, and Z axes, and I have some planes which I can sketch and work on. And if these are kind of out here in space, it can be a bit inconvenient for me. It takes a bit of skill, you know, to learn how to place these properly so that things go easily and go well for you, and you will gain that skill. But for now, you can take my word for it. What I'd like to do is I'd like to move this 0 point right down under here, right down on the floor, and I'd like to have it right underneath that point right there. You'll see why later, and it'll become really clear. But, you know, for now, you can take my word for it. We can't actually move the origin. We can't move it because that is sort of the basis upon which our entire CAD model is built. But what I can do is I can move the picture that we put in as a canvas. So to this end, I will go to this canvas, I will right mouse button click it, and I will say edit canvas. Now, this should be familiar to you because it is exactly the same command that we had before. I didn't invoke this command again. I have gone back to the canvas that was placed using this edit canvas command, and I have decided to edit it. I'm not doing it again, I am editing the one that we did before. And before I told you we didn't have to mess with any of this stuff, and we still don't have to mess with it directly. But we have this funny thing on the screen, and if you twist it a little bit, you'll see it's actually only in 2 dimensions. And we call this the Gizmo. We call it the Gizmo because it came from a tool called 3D Studio Max, and they called it the Gizmo 20 years ago, so we're sticking with it. And with the Gizmo, I can actually move this canvas. I can move it back and forth. I can move it up and down. I can even move it in the plane. Now what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to touch any of these. These here would actually scale my picture, so it would stretch it. But if we stretch it, then all our calibration work is for naught. So let's not stretch it. Let's not mess with any of this. Let's just move it using the arrows for now, for simplicity's sake, and get this sort of on the floor right underneath that central point. That actually looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, make sure I get it nice and as close as I can get it. And it actually looks like I just eyeballed this really close to the floor, so I'm quite happy with this. I'm going to say okay. When I'm done with that, I'm going to fit it again, and we're all setting up, and we're set in space. And I think this is a good place for us to perhaps end the first video, because now you have your background picture, and you're ready to go creating geometry.